Hello and welcome. Last time I installed SQL Server and Thycotic Server Secret. The plan was roughly to install an HA environment with multiple SQL servers. SQL High Available Group features had multiple issues during installation. Here are a few notices which I made during installation. Here are a few ways how to perform high available installation on Thycotic Secret Server or any high available solution. Let's configure HA SQL. First, we need to enable Windows Server feature failover clustering. Install this feature first on all cluster members before configuring it. Then start Failover Clustering Manager from one cluster host. Create cluster from Validate Configuration and use host names. For production failover cluster required NIC teaming, same levels on updates, and other settings matching between hosts. Validation checks multiple parameters from hosts which try to join on cluster. Failed summary shows which parts need to fix before creating cluster, or in my case unsigned drivers raise the fail flag. Also, check that between hosts firewall won't restrict traffic or port. Creating a cluster is super simple, just the name of the cluster and free IP address for the cluster. Now the cluster is ready and Microsoft SQL High Available Group can be configured. So start to configure SQL Server by adding SQL Server on Always On Availability Groups. This allows hosts to join on HA. Last, restart SQL Server. Next, the SQL Server allows connections through TCP/IP. The last change which I made was to change the user who runs SQL Server on Windows. The default user is NT Service SQL Server, but this gave a lot of issues on permissions and HA didn't sync at all. So I decided to run the SQL Server on the AD Service account, which enough permission to create High Availability Group. Restart service and do this on all servers which will be a member of HA. Little jump off, but if you have issues with synchronizing and replicas, check which account runs the SQL Server and does that account has proper permission to create HA. Also check the firewall between hosts. SQL replication required ports 1433 and 5022 for HA. Let's open SQL Server Management Studio where we create a high availability group and log in to the SQL Server. Thycotic 1 server has the database which we're going to replicate on the second host. The second host doesn't have any database, which is a requirement. Then start the new availability group wizard. Set name for HA and tab database level health detection. You can select multiple databases if needed. Then add replica, server and log in it. Next select about you want a data transfer between hosts happened, fast or slow. HA use port 5022. Change backup preference settings if needed. Lister host for HA is recommended to use and it can be SQL Express also, just set DNS name and default SQL port and static IP address. Seeding can configure use network share for distributing seed file. Finally check for everything before creating HA. Let's check dashboard. HA is healthy and database is synchronized on second host. And second host have database now. You can add more replicas servers on HA and listeners later. Thanks for watching and see you soon.